All right. Hey, hello, everybody. Fantastic. Thank you for showing up on a Saturday. I know that's sometimes difficult for people, so I appreciate you coming here and being with me today and being here mostly for yourself. Today, we're going to speak about, the secret to having the body and brain you want without all that stress and struggle. And the people that I really need to give credit to right at the beginning are BJ Fogg and his sister, Linda Fogg Phillips. BJ is the director uh, of the Behavioral Design Lab at Stanford University. And through his own experience and through his own behavior design research, he came across something he calls tiny habits. I found BJ and his sister Linda online. I was looking for something to back up my own experience. Because in my experience being a health coach, what I found is that most people are trying to make big changes too fast. And so I started to see there's a lot of people out there, Mel Robbins and James Clear, who just wrote Atomic Habits, and Ariana Huffington, who talks about micro steps. And what I discovered is that all those paths lead to BJ Fogg. And as I said, he's the director of the Behavioral Design Lab at Stanford University. He started to apply some of his discoveries to himself, and he realized that the tinier you can make a habit, the more likely you are to make it automatic. And the more you can connect with that habit emotionally and rewire your brain for success, the faster you can change that habit. So some of you in this class participated in the Healthy Habit Change Summit and were introduced to Tiny Habits method there. And hopefully you even tried on some tiny habits for size. Some of you are coming to this without any experience of tiny habits. So I'll be going over everything in detail. No matter what level of experience you're bringing, you'll get a lot out of this training. I'll have stuff all the way from just the beginner level to more advanced things. And again, is if you can post your questions in the chat, I'll be checking those out, especially at the end. And I will make sure, if you have specific examples you want to ask me about, please do that. So for those of you that aren't familiar with me so much, I'm Catherine Miller. I'm a holistic health and energy coach. I just did a 6-week summit on tiny habits and really applying those habits to healthy habit change. And I'm also now taking the Tiny Habits coaching certification at the Tiny Habits Academy with Linda Fogg Phillips. So I'm kind of steeped in this right now. I'm really happy to be sharing with you, all the years of experience I have and the new experience that I have as well. So I want you to really pay close attention. So this is what I've seen. There is a ton of super smart, capable women, and I'm sure you all fit into that category. You're pretty well informed about what goes into making a healthy body and brain, eating well, moving, supplementing, managing stress, finding your joy, getting pleasure out of life. There's no lack of information out there on how to take care of yourself. And many of you on this call have done a lot of your own research and experimentation. And that's even why you're here, right? So many of you may find the ideas and strategies I speak about kind of familiar. Maybe you've heard of them before, maybe you've read about them. The issue is that when you hear something that sounds familiar, this little voice comes up that says, oh, I already know that. And then we tune out. So if that happens during this masterclass, I want you to pause before you assume you already know what I'm talking about. And I want you to ask yourself, am I actually doing it? All right. We all know so much, but very few of us have figured out a way to apply that knowledge to the way we actually live. So ask yourself, am I actually applying this knowledge, the knowledge that I have, and am I getting the results that I desire? And here's the deal. If you right now don't feel empowered on a daily basis to make changes in your life easily and without struggle, then I ask that you give me your full attention and listen with a new ear. Do we have a deal? If we have a deal, write chat if you write deal in the chat if you agree. Great, great. I'm seeing some deals popping up. All right, so let's get going. I imagine that you're on this call because there is a gap between how you would like to feel in your body and brain and how you actually feel now. And you want to know what's the best, most effective, the easiest way to balance those hormones, manage your stress, not have to struggle with weight or moods or force yourself on a diet or an exercise program that makes you feel trapped. Most of us have gotten to the stage in our lives where we're not into imposing rules on ourselves. So the real reason your body isn't working for you is not because you're lacking in willpower or undisciplined or have some character flaw. And I'm just going to give you a moment to let that sink in, um, because most of us feel that way about ourselves. We feel that we're not disciplined, that we're lacking in some way. And so, we're kind of hard on ourselves. The reason this is happening is because you were never taught how to put yourself and your self-care number one, right? Self-care first, you number one. Now let's just take a moment and tell me in the chat if the thought of putting your self-care first before all others makes you a bit uncomfortable. All right? Because in my own experience and in the experience of the women that I work with and speak with, even if I say it, there's this extreme, I see Susie saying yes, yeah, extreme discomfort at the thought that we would put ourselves number one. And it's not our fault that we feel that way. You were taught implicitly and explicitly from the moment you came into the world that your job is to take care of others first, and to disregard your own needs, because that's selfish, right? That's what we're taught. It's something that is still ingrained in us, very difficult to overcome, even though those ideas are being challenged, by people like me, but women in leadership, social media influencers, holistic, doctors, and other health coaches, where this issue of self-care is being spoken about a lot, but the cultural conditioning that we have is very strong. So, we get away with it for a while. We can get away with putting ourselves last or not being on a list, because we're strong. Women can do a lot. That's why we're so good at marathons and things like that. But what happens when you do that is, as the decades start racking up, the effects of putting yourself last start to accumulate and take a toll. So you might experience these terrible hormonal imbalance, like hot flashes and night sweats and mood swings and migraines and weight gain and fatigue and anxiety, and it's like you're just chalking it up to menopause, right? Or you have burnout, cognitive decline, brain fog, aches and pains, and you're just chalking it up to aging. Well, I can tell you these are not normal signs of menopause, even though a lot of people have them. These are not normal signs of aging. And I'm going to repeat that. These are not normal symptoms of hormonal transitioning, or aging, getting older. These are signs that you need to start taking care of yourself right away. And I'm seeing this effect in younger and younger women. I used to work with women through their mid 40s, right up into their 70s, right? And now I'm starting to have women in their mid 30s coming to me. They have PCOS, they have early menopause, thyroid issues, anxiety, and all kinds of stress related disorders. So herein lies the challenge. Your ability to age gracefully and be active, mentally sharp, and physically fit now and well into your 80s and 90s and beyond depends on your ability to respond to these challenges with the appropriate lifestyle changes. In other words, you need to change your daily habits. And it's hard. Changing the way you live and adopting new habits is really hard. And we suck at change. Most of us, by the time we get to the age where we really realize we better change, or our lives are not going to be too happy. We're also at a stage where we just don't feel like we have a lot of energy and brain space and all of that. So, it's when you have no time for yourself, when you're already tired and burnt out, it's overwhelming, to listen to all the great info out there and realize that almost everything you do needs to be questioned and revised. What you eat, how you move, how you think, where you shop, what kind of shampoo you use, should you wear nail polish? I mean, it's like, so that's why you're in the right place right now, because I am going to share with you what I have discovered through my own journey and how it is absolutely possible, no matter what age you're starting at, to undo the damage caused by putting your needs last, no matter how overwhelmed, busy, or burnt out you are. So here's my story. I'm just going to give you an idea. I've been there, I've hit that wall, that mental, emotional, and physical wall. And just as I was in the throes of perimenopause at age 50, and this is a picture of me, you know, back then, about 10 years ago, and I was preparing this big dinner, big vegan farm to table meal for like 100 people, 5 courses. That was just one of the fun things I used to do. But I was at the peak of my career at that point. I was head chef of this meditation retreat center. I was designing plant-based meals for thousands of people, teaching culinary arts. People were coming as apprentices from all over the world to work there. I taught yoga and meditation as well. And I even had a daily meditation and yoga practice, which, you know, that that I was very proud of. But the truth was that there was a backside to all this. I had been sleep deprived for years. I worked really long hours. I was on call 24/7. It's a very high stress, dysfunctional, macho organization, which meant you worked no matter what. The longer you worked, the more kudos you got. You were looked at as weak if you had to take a break or you got sick. And although I was creating these beautiful, healthy meals every day from scratch, I was relying on sugar and caffeine to fuel my days. So hitting the wall forced me to completely think my life. And I just want to say, I know a lot of people will say to me, look, I'm doing everything right. I'm doing as much as I can. And I'm still experiencing all these problems. And you could say the same about me. I mean, look, I was in the perfect, I had a lot of creative freedom. I loved my job. I loved, the people I was working with. I had access to the best food. Exercise, meditation. I mean, all these things, right? And yet I was still, um, not able to put my self-care first and get the rest that I really needed in this case. And for each of you, you'll find it'll be a little bit different. There's areas that you take good care of yourself, but we can't manage everything um, by ourselves. So I was tired and depressed, and I had no stamina or energy. I didn't know how I was going to get out of this situation. So I started making small changes. And for me, I started saying no to these unrealistic demands I was placing on myself. So part of it was from me, part of it was from others. And then I started getting support and advice and mentoring from people with more experience than me. And with their help, I started doing some really simple things for myself, some really common sense things that I had just been denying myself, like drinking enough water. I was working in a really hot kitchen all the time and not drinking enough. I started to get more rest, take time off. But I think really most importantly, I started thinking about what I really wanted. It was a really remarkable time. It was very difficult, but in a short time, I started to feel better, more confident, clearer about what I really wanted for myself. And as I realized that, it became clear it doesn't have to be this way. I do have the power within me to create a life where I can help others without sacrificing myself. That is not a necessary sacrifice. It's not realistic. It's not practical. But most of all, it's not necessary. So of course, I looked around and I saw, look at all these other women in the very same predicament, taking care of others, not taking care of themselves, putting everything else before them, actually afraid to relax and take time for themselves because they feel like they're going to lose the plot. And so I decided to start helping them in the same way I'd help myself, by making these small incremental changes in how I live my life and then building on those successes to create even bigger changes. So it's been 9 years since I made that decision to start a new career from scratch. And um, I it's been amazing. Since then, thousands of women have been going through my events and programs. So I'm on a mission. My goal is to help as many women as possible to be the masters of their health and energy and well-being, so they're free to give whatever gifts they want to give to the world. We are so needed to step up and step out. And if your health is compromised, so will your energy and your ability to live and give fully in your life. And I'm not trying to say that I'm trying to set you up so you can just take care of other people better. That is not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying I really want you to be able to live the kind of life that you choose. This is what real empowerment is about. So in this class, I'm going to share with you the single most important thing. Well, actually, there are two things that got me from where I was to here and now, and how to use those ingredients in your own life. And it's so important that you understand the how and why behind the tiny habit system, so you can actually be that person who designs her own life rather than being a victim of it. So here's what you're going to learn today. The secret ingredient all success begins with, how to overcome resistance, especially, resistance to practicing healthier habits, how to succeed in making big lifestyle changes that lead to amazing energy, weight loss, and brain health without having to punish yourself, have superhuman willpower, self-discipline, or even motivation, and how tiny habits can become your own personal superpower. So I'm going to show you all of this. It's going to go fast. It's time to get out your pen and your worksheet and give me your undivided attention. For some of you, this class is going to hit just the right spot and be more than enough to sink your teeth into and get what you want. And for some of you, you're going to be ready to take a deeper dive into the next level of habit change and get even bigger results. So this is going to be a step to that. You are going to want, more support to tackle those big challenges and achieve those goals. Maybe you've been putting them off for years. And if you fit that description, I have a very special opportunity near the end of this masterclass. So stay tuned and let's get started. All right, so we're going to start by exploring step by step the system for creating new tiny habits. I've broken it down into 5 steps to make it really easy. And this is a critical part about how you can shift your experience from one of this hardship and struggle to one of ease and confidence. We're going to talk about each of these one at a time because they play such an important role in designing your first tiny habits and making it really easy to succeed. So take a look at your worksheet. If you've just joined and you don't have your worksheet printed out, there's a link in the chat that you can click on to get that worksheet. Or it's in the reminder email you got earlier. All right, so step 1, all right, desire is the secret ingredient for making it all happen. What do I mean by that? You have to really want the results you're looking for. Okay, I want to emphasize this step because I've seen over and over again in my experience and in my coaching practice that if we're focusing on what we think we should do, we're not doing the important work of discovering what we truly want. So shoulds, like I should be eating better, I should be exercising, don't give us the emotional satisfaction we need to build solid habits. So here's an actual comment I got to one of the summit interviews on YouTube. This woman said to me, "What do I do if the thought of having to do all these habits makes me feel really stressed out and depressed? So what do I do if the thought of having to do all these habits makes me feel really stressed out and depressed?" And, she said, "I feel like I'm not allowed to be myself anymore, but just have to do things as expected from me, like a robot." So this is a real absence of desire here, right? She's just looking at all these things she's supposed to do, that she thinks she should do. Maybe someone said, yeah, if you have migraines, so you should stop doing this and this and start doing that and that. And of course she's like, okay, I don't want to have migraines, but this all sounds really horrible or really hard. um, this, you've got to be really looking at underneath, what is it you really want? So this is where a lot of resistance to change comes from. There's a difference between imposing a rule on yourself and a desire coming from inside you. So a rule would be, I have to diet, I can't eat gluten, I have to go to the gym, I can't drink alcohol. And we'll be talking a lot about how this quashes your spirit and any motivation you might have and sets you up for failure. But first, let's look at an example of how we can get around this problem. So a common desire would be, my desire is to lose weight. And you'll see this is on your worksheet now. You'll see there are 3 common desires women have in relationship to their health. A is, I want to lose weight. B is, I want to have more energy. C is, I want to exercise. I'm going to walk you through each of these in turn, showing you how to make them into a tiny habit. But I'm going to use my desires to lose weight as the main example. This is a super easy process. And these first 2 steps I'm taking you through about desire, and that all of that is really me elaborating on the tiny habits method that BJ and his sister teach. I have found that for women, we ignore our desires so much that it's almost like we really have to exaggerate the importance of this, even though it isn't an exaggeration. So I'm going to take a little sip of tea. Hold on. Great. So, let's face it, if weight is your issue, you probably do want to lose weight. You probably have a desire to lose weight, but it's not the real desire. Okay. So let me explain. The end goal is how losing weight is going to make you feel. And getting in touch with that is really, really important. That is what is going to help us succeed. It's the same with exercising. For most of us, it's a means to an end. It's not like our goal is really to exercise. Our goal is to feel fit and strong. If we could feel fit and strong without having to exercise, well, who would do it, right? And who wants to eat healthy? I mean, the reason we do that, we want to feel great in our body. So it's really important that you focus on how you want to feel. So when you look at your worksheet and where it says step 1, desire, you want to start to think about one of these examples. What's the one that most hits the area that you want to work on? And of course, you're going to have other areas, but for today, I thought it'd be easier to just give you these choices since they are common to most people. So A is, my desire is to lose weight, and I want to feel lighter, more energetic, good in my clothes, confident in my body. If this is the goal you're choosing, then I would circle that, and I'd write down some other things. How do you want to feel? How would losing weight make you feel? B is, I want to have more energy. I want to feel well rested, clear-headed, alive, energized, excited about life. So if B is the one that you're going to be working on, then you can write down some things in there like how is it that you want to feel? C is, my desire is to exercise. I want to feel fit, strong, toned, energized, sexy, powerful, confident. Any of those or one of those, it doesn't really matter. They don't all have to be true for you. So that's why there's room to add others. The main point is you need to be emotionally invested in the result, or you won't get a lasting result. So while you're working on that, I'll tell you a little bit about step 2. Step 2 is really about choosing the habit that will get you closer to the desired result. So to find that habit, the first thing you need to ask yourself is, what is keeping me from achieving my desired goal? And what could I be doing instead? So if you want to lose weight and you're not losing weight, what is getting in the way? So, here's how this example is going to look as we go through it. My desire is to lose weight. I want to feel lighter, more energetic, good in my clothes, confident in my body. When I look at what's in the way of that, I can see I'm eating the wrong foods. So I decide, okay, well, I'm eating the wrong foods. I'll eat more vegetables. Um, and by the way, that is a very effective strategy for losing weight. I've done many, 5-day challenges with, hundreds of people, and I'll have people get back to me and say, oh my God, I lost 3 pounds in 5 days just because I started eating more vegetables. So, what you want to do now is on your worksheet, you can see in step 2, identify your challenge and choose the habits that fits. You want to write down, okay, what's getting in the way of you doing one of those 3 things, A, B, or C? And what's the top thing getting in the way? There's probably many things, but what's the top thing getting in the way? And then what's a habit that will help you get over that challenge? Okay. So, like I said, if you have any questions whatsoever, please post them in the chat box. I'm pretty one-pointed while I'm teaching, but afterwards I can answer them. Okay. So now step 3, identify the tiniest step to practice the habit. So it's all about shrinking your habit down to the tiniest bite you can imagine. It needs to take 30 seconds or less and be super easy to accomplish. So I can just feel you thinking, 30 seconds? Who are you kidding? How is that going to help me get to the gym for an hour? Or how is that going to help me change my whole diet? So hold that thought, because I'm going to be addressing it soon. And in a minute, I'm going to tell you a true story that will show you how these tiny habits lead to bigger change. The beauty of the neuroscience is that setting these tiny habits in motion creates a new pathway in the brain. And it allows you to bypass all this resistance and any need for self-discipline or willpower. So how does this look? So we'll go through the steps really quickly. Your desire is to lose weight, and you want to feel really good in your body. You're eating the wrong foods, so you're going to eat more vegetables. So let's see, how could I start eating more vegetables? Well, maybe you add a handful of baby spinach to your breakfast, a smoothie or a scramble, or maybe you add a handful of baby spinach to your evening meal, like you have a salad, or you add it to your soup. But you find the way. Maybe it's just that I will order a salad for lunch every day. There's a lot of different ways you can do that, but the thing itself, the step itself, needs to only take 30 seconds or less. So, like I said, don't worry about how this is going to lead to losing 20 pounds or balancing your hormones or healing your digestion. We're setting the stage for you to experience success on all those levels. But to do that, you need to start with a habit that's just so easy and so doable. So I'm going to repeat again, because everybody makes this mistake. I've been coaching people now for a while on these tiny habits, and people will say, after, when I get up in the morning, I'm going to meditate for 10 minutes. Way, way, way too long. It has to be 30 seconds or less. So not 1 minute, not 5 minutes, not an hour. Trust me on this one, because until you actually try this, you won't really understand why it's so effective. Okay, so step 4, find an existing behavior to anchor your tiny habits. So we're creatures of habit. We do certain things every day. Some things we do multiple times a day. And it's really important that you connect your new habit to an old habit. So rather than having to remember something out of the blue, or set an alarm, which is not recommended, or write post-it reminders, also not recommended, the best way to start a new habit is to attach it to something you already do on a regular basis without thinking. So, like after I get up and put my feet on the floor, after I wake up and put my feet on the floor, in the morning, after I get in the car and put my seatbelt on, after I walk in the kitchen and turn the kettle on. There are many things like that you do every day, like getting dressed, brushing your teeth. Those are perfect opportunities to attach a new attach a new habit to. So the easiest times of day to find an anchor habit is during your morning or evening routine. And if there's a habit you want to practice multiple times a day, you want to choose something like using the toilet, because we do that multiple times without fail. Um, Getting up in the morning and going to bed at night, those are things you do. Showering, getting dressed. Like I said, good anchors for things you want to do once a day. All right. So your desire is to lose weight. You want to feel good. You're eating the wrong food, so you're going to eat more vegetables by adding a handful of baby spinach to one of your meals. And a way to put this into a kind of formula is after I put the eggs in the pan, I will add a big handful of spinach. So in case I'm just been assuming that you've been following along on your worksheet, but you want to make sure if you've chosen a different habit than the one I have here, that you are shrinking your habit into the tiniest step possible and finding an anchor that works, that you think works for you. So you can put your comments in the chat, by the way, if this is making sense to you, or if there's a question you have about any part of this. So step 5, each time you practice your tiny habit, you celebrate. All right. What does that mean? Well, contrary to popular opinion, it's not willpower or self-discipline or whipping up some kind of artificial motivation that gets us to change our habits. Even a doctor's orders, even threat of death or disease, they're not the best creators of new habits. But emotions do create habits. And just like we spoke about in step 1, this last step is closing the loop on desire. And this is the thing that really rewires your brain with positive reinforcement on your new habit. Each and every time you practice your tiny habit, you need to celebrate, because if you don't create that emotional link to your tiny habit, you will fail. So, you look through all these steps that we went through, right? You've got your recipe. After I put the eggs in the pan, I'll add a big handful of spinach. Or, after I heat up the soup for dinner, I will add a handful of spinach. Now, when you do that, at the time you do it, you need to celebrate. So how do you do that? You can look at your worksheet, and I have made a little grid. I mean, in the Tiny Habits Academy, they have a list of over 100 ways you can celebrate. But there's some gestures. You can clap your hands, you can fist pump, you can do the victory sign, you can do the thumbs up. I mean, there's way to go, well done, excellent, perfecto. You can do a little dance, or you can leap for joy, stamp your feet, do a little shuffle, whatever really gives you that burst of happiness. It's I know it may seem silly, but they have done a lot of studies. They have studied thousands and thousands of people that have gone through this. And in my own experience, it's really important. When I don't do the celebrations, it takes me forever to build a habit. When I do, I remember them, and I remember to do them, and they just become automatic. So circle one or more of those celebrations you would like to do, or if there's ones that you hate, cross them out. It's fine. It has to work for you. So how many of you think this is a weird? Yeah. Susie says, I often forget step 5. Yes. And you feel silly. So how many other people think this is kind of weird? This is kind of a sort of a, just if you imagine, here you are in the kitchen, you throw a handful of spinach into your smoothie or scramble, and then you give yourself a thumbs up and say, well done, Catherine, and it can feel very strange. But what I want to say here is it's probably way better than what you're usually saying to yourself. And believe me, I know what's going on in that head of yours. A lot of times we have very negative self-talk that's going on in the background. And when we do small things, like let's just say you threw a handful of spinach, your mind might be saying, oh yeah, like that's going to make a big difference. How's that going to help me lose these 10, 20, 30 pounds that I need to lose? Yeah, right. It's never going to be enough. And, what did you think? This was going to help you. or you, uh, you chide yourself for being lazy or for not doing what you think you should be doing. Um, and it's just, we just talk to ourselves in a very horrible way usually. So if right from the start you throw that spinach in there and you applaud yourself for doing that, you literally are rewiring your brain. So, and the truth is, if you want to be able to adopt new habits easily, you have to affirm your efforts each and every time in order to complete the habit. That's it. If you do that, you will begin to notice a difference. You'll start looking forward to doing these things, and it will become automatic. You don't need 21 days. I mean, you can develop a new habit in like 5 to 7 days if you're doing these celebrations. And actually, once you start doing this, you'll want to do more. So make sure, look at the bottom of your worksheet, emotions create habits. I want you to star that or highlight it, whatever you need to do in order to make sure that you're drawing that to your attention. So here's the other tiny habits, the other desires that I want to run through with you. So if you chose having more energy and you want to feel well rested, clear-headed, excited about life, energized, and maybe you saw that your challenge was not getting enough sleep. So, okay, I'll wind down earlier in the evening. And then you're like, okay, well, what is the anchor? Or what is the tiniest part of that I can do? Okay, so because winding down, that could be like 5, 6 different steps, right? So in this case, all right, I'll turn off all screens an hour before bed. That's an easy, it doesn't take long, takes a few seconds. What are you going to anchor that to? Okay, after I watch the news, the evening news, I guess, I will turn off all screens. And then you celebrate. So it's attached to something that you do every evening. Maybe it's like, after I watch my favorite show, I will turn off all screens. After I check my emails, I will turn off all screens. But you do it, after I check all emails at 8 p.m., I will turn, or 9 p.m., whatever it is, right? You set it up in the way that works for you. Okay, so the next one is my desires to exercise. And you want to feel fit, you want to feel strong, confident, sexy, powerful. And you realize, okay, what's the challenge? I spend way too much time sitting. Okay, so I'll move more often. And then you need to break that down into a tiny habit. I'll walk around the office a few times a day. So you could say, each time I use the toilet, I will take the long way back to my desk. And then I'll celebrate. Now, again, what I've found with people, everyone thinks like they need to go from 0 to 60 when it comes to exercise. And it's just way too hard, way too difficult, and most people end up quitting as a result. So again, don't doubt these tiny habits. You need to try them before you apply too much cynicism. All right? Is that a deal? All right, so we're going to do something, we're going to have a little fun before we move on to the next step. I want to do an exercise with you called a celebration blitz. And this might feel a little inauthentic or forced, but you are actually using the way your brain is wired to create a positive connection to your new tiny habit. So what you do is this. Right now, we're just going to practice the celebration part. So you don't need a tiny habit, anything like this. But what you're going to do is you're sitting, wherever you're sitting, you're going to look around you and see what kinds of things can I do to reorganize my space. So if you're, have an empty glass sitting next to you, you can carry it over to the sink and you can applaud yourself for putting the glass in the sink. You can take your pen and you can place it neatly at the top of your worksheet and go, marvelous job, Catherine. That's awesome. And then you can, I can tidy up these little papers next to me, and make them look a lot neater. And I say, oh, that's just awesome. Then I see I have like a piece of lint on my shoulder. I can just brush that off, say, very good job. And what you want to do is, like, whether it's fluffing a pillow next to you or straightening up your shirt or folding a piece of clothing or whatever it is, you want to go around and just spend the next 30 seconds or more just celebrating yourself for every tiny little thing you do. And you can do this as often as you like to practice celebrating. It's a way to get over that thing that Susie said, that, that she often forgets that fifth step because she feels silly, right? And you will feel silly, but that's okay, right? It's really fine to feel silly. Actually, feeling silly can make you laugh. It can make you giggle. It totally gets these endorphins going. So write in the chat now how it felt to do that celebration, and take a look at the celebration list. And like I said before, circle a few that you would like to use when you practice your tiny habits, or add a few that um, you thought of, that you came up with just now. All right. So I want to tell you a little story, because it's through these stories that you can start to see and imagine how these tiny habits would apply to your life. This is an example of how your emotions can work for or against you. So Linda told me this story before she came to me. She had a desire to lose weight, feel fit again. And I think most of you will be able to relate to the experience she had. She came to this point where she just decided once and for all, come hell or high water, that she was going to exercise. So she got a membership in a nearby gym. And she jumped into this early morning boot camp class twice in the first week. And she just gave it all she had. So, of course, she had been quite sedentary for a long time. And after doing these classes, she was so sore, she could hardly walk afterwards. So she skipped the next week, just to recover. And then she lost momentum. She skipped the next week. And then she never ended up going back. So you can imagine what it would take to get back in that gym. Because every time she drives by, she's reminded of the physical pain, the emotional pain, because she's still paying for a membership that she doesn't use. So there's guilt, and that she made a promise to herself that she didn't keep. She feels bad about herself. It's 100% negative emotional experience of guilt and failure that has now created this, quote, bad habit of avoiding the gym. And I like what Tammy was saying, feels good to celebrate, but you do need to practice. You just love to dance around. That's awesome. Great. So this is an example that emotions actually do create habits. Many of you probably have some residual resistance to change as a result of past failures or experiences of pain. You have a resistance to change, because of these experiences of failure and pain. So, like maybe you've tried to eat better, but the foods you cooked didn't taste good to you. You didn't like them. You ended up throwing everything away, or maybe you started out with a bang, doing a lot of cooking and pre-prep and all of this, but then you lost, after a week, it was just too much. So you quit. Maybe you tried meditating, but you just felt like, you know, your mind was going crazy and you couldn't sit still, so you stopped. You might have tried a yoga class once, but the teacher was terrible, so you never went back, or you felt uncomfortable in your yoga clothes. You felt like everyone's skinny, but except for me. I mean, there's all these reasons why it makes it very difficult for us to revisit something we feel we failed at. So, unbeknownst to you, the reason for this is that your primal reptilian brain is trying to subconsciously protect you from things that make you feel bad. And pain, guilt, and failure, they're bad. They make you feel awful. And so all you know is that in spite of your best efforts, you keep repeating the same cycle. So the key to breaking that cycle of negative reinforcement is to create a cycle of positive reinforcement and building one tiny success upon another. So let's tell the rest of the story. So when Linda came to me, she was really at that point where she felt like a failure. And I realized that the worst thing that she could do was go back and try and force herself to go to the gym. And she would be, reminded of all those past attempts to get fit. And what was most important for her at that moment was to rewire her brain with an experience of success. So she already had this positive desire to be fit and strong in her body, like we talked about that step one. And so in this case, we chose this very small, non-threatening amount of exercise, something she could do without having to change clothes or go anywhere, that only took a few seconds to complete. She worked in an office building, so every time she used the bathroom, she would take the long way back to her desk. So she'd go down one flight of steps, cross the floor, and then up another flight. It only took her about 20 to 30 seconds to complete. So after a few days, she was actually reaching her step goals. She would complete the route maybe 3 to 4 times per day, and then she'd celebrate her victory by giving herself a thumbs up and saying, well done, or congratulating herself. If there's people around, she could say it silently, but she really got into the habit of that. And then in a couple of weeks, she was going down and up 2 flights of stairs. And at the end of the month, she was also taking daily lunchtime walks for 10 to 20 minutes, having lunch meetings with people. There was a path near where she worked that she could walk on that was nice. So in that 4-week period, she actually started losing some weight. She was feeling more energetic. Most importantly, she was confident in her ability to make a plan and stick with it. As she started to feel better in her body, it increased her desire to be even more fit and strong, which in turn led to doing even more. So unlike the gym, whenever she passed that stairwell, she'd have this feeling of victory build up in her. She now has something that she can build on. So I think that, you know, we got Linda to the point where if she wanted to go back to the gym, we could use the tiny habits method to then allow her to get to the point if that was her desire. And so you can see how the emotional component of this is so important in terms of positive emotions. And you can also see how your resistance, which may have built up over many years, doesn't have to be a problem as long as you use this formula. So it's possible. You're an emotional being. It's possible to change your mindset and your identity. Being an emotional being is a positive thing, no matter what we've been told as women. When you reinforce your tiny habits with positive emotions, you can build on your successes, and then even bigger change becomes possible. The truly remarkable thing is that it's about changing your identity. You're rewiring and retraining your brain for success. So instead of being someone that hates to exercise, you become the kind of person who loves to be fit. And instead of the person who couldn't be bothered to eat healthy, you become the kind of person who loves to feel really clear and sharp and awake, and has found a way to support that in her life. And this is the beauty. If you've had failures, it's been tough to make changes, you have an identity that's built around that. We need to build a new identity around success. And that's what tiny habits can do for you. So here's the recipe. You'll see this also at the bottom of your worksheet. Um, and you fill in the blank, and you fill in the blank, and then I will celebrate with. And it's nice to write these things out because then you can tweak them as you go forward. This is what Linda's tiny habit recipe was like. She said, after I use the restroom, I will use the stairs and take the long way back to my desk. Then I will celebrate with a thumbs up and say, well done. As you can imagine, this recipe can be applied to any area of habit formation in your life. So I want you to take a moment and, using the information that you filled out on your worksheet, put that information into the tiny habits recipe. Anyone that feels like they'd love to share their tiny habits recipe, you can put that in the chat. If you are stuck, it felt like it was clear, but now that you're putting into the recipe, it isn't so clear anymore, then I would, just put it in the chat, and we can talk about it at the end. Because this is the part, it's experimentation. Don't worry about experimenting and tweaking things. This is not about black and white. I'm going to spend an hour at the gym, and if I don't, then it's just not good enough. This is about doing everything you can to make it possible. So if you find out the anchor that you've chosen doesn't quite work for you, you find a different anchor or you refine the anchor. Um, if you find that the tiny habit that you have doesn't really work for you, then you find a different tiny habit. It's, you don't, if you find that in your experience of maybe you have a few tiny habits going at one time, which actually is a great thing. You don't have to do them one at a time. You'll see which ones work and which ones don't, and that'll give you a lot of information on how to form new tiny habits based on what's successful for you. So this is all about trial and error, not right and wrong, black and white. Awesome. So I promised to tell you how to make tiny habits your own personal superpower. Um, you have a powerful science-backed step-by-step recipe you can use to adopt the habits that will truly strengthen you, your body, your brain, your energy. These are going to help give you the stamina and resilience that you need to live the life you desire. And I've really tried to give you some, in detail, the kinds of things you need to think about when you're using tiny habits. But as I said in the beginning, some of you are going to want to go further, even faster, and you probably have more than one challenge you want to deal with. It's totally normal. So you may have noticed that Linda had a very important extra element in her success story. And so did I when I was going through my burnout phase. Don't get me wrong, these tiny habits, as I said, they're very powerful on their own. But when you add the second secret ingredient, when I mentioned in the beginning, it'll become your superpower. And that secret ingredient is personal coaching and mentoring. Linda had all the benefits of partnering with me. She had my troubleshooting experience, figure out how to best meet her unique personal goals and challenges. While she was working on the exercise tiny habit, she was also working on her other goals, like setting boundaries, changing her eating habits, managing her stress. And she was able to do all this in spite of having a full-time corporate job, lots of travel. She was on the road every week, 2 teenage daughters, a new romantic relationship. And the reason she was able to do that is because I had her back. So I want to be really clear about this. Having tiny habits as a superpower doesn't mean you have to be superwoman. It doesn't mean you have to do all of this on your own. And she honestly would not have been able to do this on her own. There were many times along the way when life threw an obstacle at her, like teenage girls, anyone? I mean, how many obstacles can you think of in that realm, or maybe a particular strategy that we'd come up with wasn't working the way we thought it would. So we had to change it. Or her travel schedule made it hard for her to eat the way she wanted to. So we were constantly revising and improving on the things that she was doing to get better and better results. So all of these things needed in-depth troubleshooting to find the best way forward. And personal support took away the burden of having to figure it out all by herself. So tiny habits plus personal coaching is an unstoppable superpower. When you have big dreams, big goals, big challenges, there's always going to be big challenges. That's my experience anyways. It's just the nature of growth and personal development. But there are a few more reasons why personal support and coaching is the perfect answer. And I want to go over those with you. Too much information. So when it comes to solving some of the bigger challenges of hormonal imbalance and burnout you may be experiencing, you really need to drill down into the nitty-gritty details to discover the best strategy for you. Where do you start? How do you sort through all the information out there? Most people don't even get started, or they start and then when it doesn't go to plan, and that happens a lot, they end up quitting. So I often call myself a lifestyle detective because I can look at your life and see which strategies will be the most effective. It saves a lot of time and agony. So there's also this thing of trying to do it all yourself, going it alone. I've seen plenty of smart, capable women who can run circles around anyone when it comes to getting things done. But when it comes to working on yourself, that requires another level of support. And it doesn't matter how capable you are. And when we're saying, well, I know what to do, I don't know why I can't do it. And we're really stubborn about asking for support, and in the end, we're the ones that lose out. So many of you are finding that the effects of putting your self-care on the back burner are limiting you. They're limiting your ambitions. They're limiting your potential, your ability to live the kind of life you want to live. And if you're being dogged with inconsistent energy, brain fog, stress, and hormonal chaos, you know, it it really is necessary to get some level of support or mentorship, so that you can actually be successful. So next one is compassionate accountability. And I love this one because women, we are way too hard on ourselves. And yes, we need accountability, but we don't need denial, guilt, doubt, fear, those kind of things heaped on us, right? We need the kind of accountability that lifts us up. And that's very hard for you to do for yourself. You need the kind of accountability where you're focusing on the power, on the positive, what you are doing. When you're looking at troubleshooting, it's just that. It's not because you're wrong or bad and didn't do something well. It's because, okay, how can we do this better? And, a non kind of judgmental space is very hard to find. With all these issues to deal with, you can see why outsourcing is an incredibly smart thing to do. And so now I'll tell you about the opportunity that I have for you right now to experience this kind of support in a conversation with me. You get your brain plus my brain, all my experience as a lifestyle detective and an expert in making healthy lifestyle changes. I'm offering this complimentary consultation called Balanced Body, Brilliant Brain Strategy Session. Here's the thing. I've had so many women say they have never had a conversation or an opportunity where they felt they could speak freely, be heard, and not be judged. They've really actually never had that kind of support. So I created this Balanced Body, Brilliant Brain strategy session as a way to give you that experience. I want to help you focus on the right information at the right time. I want to provide the kind of in-depth support that's needed when you're dealing with health and hormonal challenges, when you're overwhelmed and can't see a way forward like I was. So let's talk. This is the link to schedule a conversation with me. Put that into your browser, embodiedwomen.com/schedule, and that'll take you to my calendar. All right, so I hope everyone has had a chance to get that link. Here's what's going to happen once you click on that schedule. You'll see there's a place where you can pick a date and time. The reason I'm showing you this is because oftentimes people are like, oh, there's going to be some secret, thing that I'm going to have to buy or something like this. Basically, you'll be taken to a web page. You'll be given an opportunity to pick a date and time for your consultation. And I know it seems like an incredible offer, but it is free. And at no time will you be asked to pay for this session. So I do ask that you come ready and willing to speak about your goals and challenges. And so after you book your time, there are a few questions that you'll be asked to answer. And you can put as much time or detail into it as you want. It just takes a little bit. This will help me prepare for our session together so we can spend our time focusing on what matters most to you. And once I understand what it is you want to achieve, we'll explore how I can help you have the body and brain that works for you and the kind of life you want to live. All right. So this is your willingness to, take this time to fill out the questions, to, really focus on yourself. This is the first step to overcome that conditioning where it's like, no, it's selfish and I can't take time for myself, all of this. And speaking of time, let's talk about that a little bit. All right. Because, there's another challenge that I'd like to address. you may find yourself saying, yeah, it sounds amazing. I'd love to do it. I don't have an extra minute in the day. I'm so tired and brain fogged. The thought of adding one more thing just kills me. And I hear this all the time. And believe me, I know what that feels like. I've been there, I've done that. So this is when you need to take a moment, ask yourself some serious questions. Um, it's very important to think about, what is the cost of continuing in the way that you are now? What is How is all of this affecting your work, your relationships, your future health, your quality of life? So if nothing changes, basically how is that going to affect you? Another way to ask that question is just, how much worse do you need to get before you take your well-being seriously, right? And I'm talking about how you feel in your body right now, okay? But I'm also talking about how you're going to feel like 10, 20, 30 years from now. Because what you do now is an investment in both your current and future health. Okay, so being on this is an investment in your future health. You being on this masterclass is amazing, right? And you should definitely give yourself credit for that. Um, what I can promise you, that this call is going to give you the clarity and focus you need, as well as the strategies that will work for you to reach your goals. So to schedule your complimentary Balanced Body Brilliant Brain strategy session, you want to go to Embodied Women, that's MBODIED women.com/schedule. I am going to help you clarify your goals, and I want to really get clear on the best path forward for you. So, also there's limited time slots coming up with the Thanksgiving holidays. So don't delay. I suggest you sign up right away. So let's move on to some questions here. I noticed some people were sharing. After I start thinking negative thoughts, I will pause and take a deep breath, and I will smile. And yes, that's great. That's very, very good. And the way I would change that a little bit is after I think a negative thought. So you want to do, if you have after and start in the same sentence, it can be a little bit confusing. So you could say, after I think a negative thought, I will pause and take a deep breath, and then I will smile. Okay, awesome. And how do you work with more internal rather than external problems? So give me an example of internal, Tammy. What does that mean? Negative thoughts, things that insidiously. Yeah, I think what you said, actually, Tammy, is perfect. So another way to do that is they call it the Maui recipe. And the Maui recipe is, when my feet hit the floor, after my feet hit the floor in the morning, I will say, today is going to be a great day. Something like that. Or you will do some kind of affirmation that works for you. So literally, when you sit upright in bed and you put your feet on the floor, at that moment, you make a positive affirmation for the day. And then you celebrate making that positive affirmation. So it's a 2-for-1, it's like you get both of them. And the thing is, you don't necessarily have to be thinking a negative thought in order to make that affirmation. But what that does is it sets you up for a different experience of the day. But what you want to do is you want to interrupt that default path that's going on. So that's one of the more internal, the response to that internal chatter or negative self-talk that goes on. Okay, so if there's no more questions, I think we'll wind down. I really, really, really appreciate all of you. Again, I know it doesn't maybe seem like a big deal, but I know what it takes to spend time on yourself and take time for yourself. So please understand that I completely appreciate you showing up for yourself here. And if you have any questions whatsoever, I'll be sending the replay out with these links and things. But if you have any questions whatsoever about this, conversation with me, please feel free to ask me. All right. So you take care. Have a wonderful weekend and great holidays.